Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
Hey guys and girls, I will say guys, but it's we are open to all. Hey everybody, we are back again. We've got Babe once more doing another awesome Jacques Cousteau themed episode with Conshelf 3. This is the last one in the series of Conshelf. Go back and check out 1 and 2. Good. Once again, these are quick episodes. We're not trying to spend too much time on them, but 3 I feel is kind of open ended, and there's a lot of information not known about that. So I think we're gonna have a good talk on this, and I'm not going to waste any more time. Take it away, babe.
Howdy. Okay, we're talking about Conshelf 3. As we know, Conshelf 1 and 2 have already happened. So in 65, Conshelf 3 was done. In 62, which I missed last time, was Conshelf 2. So now we're in 65, 3 years later, and Conshelf 3 was done. So the Conshelf Station projects were experiments developed by Jacques Cousteau to prove the ability of humans to live and work underwater. The projects help lay foundations for modern day commercial diving and astronaut training. There were environmental underwater experiments as well as human psychological and physical experiments. These experiments were performed during the projects, and the results are still used in what we do today underwater. So the Continental Shelf 3, which is Conshelf 3, was being planned right after the success of Conshelf 2. So again, in 65, it was placed in the Mediterranean. So 1 was in the Mediterranean, 2 was in the Red Sea, 3 were back in the Mediterranean. It was 100 meters, 328 feet deep. So we went from 32 feet with a 90 foot at Conshelf 2 with a little bit 90 foot that had some problems, taking all those problems they had, learning from them, and then they dropped a rock and went right after it. It 328 feet deep. This habitat was a sphere. It was 2 stories tall, and it housed 6 crew people for 3 weeks. And again, psychological and physical training. 328 feet deep. Unless you're today's commercial diver or a scientist that has done that, or a Navy person that has a submarine or diving experience. Tech divers, I will say tech divers too. Most people do not go to 320 feet deep. Yeah, it's a different world. I'm certain of it.
And for most things, there's no reason to be going that deep. I mean,
right? Yeah.
I mean, you've got limited to very little light at that point in time too. So I mean, the pressure you've got. I mean, there's just so many things. Why? Except for scientific research and to test the physiological aspects and psychological aspects and stuff along those lines. Now, we'll talk more about that later, but yeah, it's just it's like, what was going through Jacques Cousteau's head, and he's like, man, we're going. He's pushing the envelope every time he does one of the things. He's like, we're just going.
But I know. Well, first of all, the fact he built into this stuff, he was pushing the envelope for that day and time anyway. So then you got your backers. We've talked about them in 1 and 2. Your minerals, your oil, your gas, as well as some government and scientific. So he's got those backers, and he took advantage of them, and not in a bad way. He took advantage of what their wants and what their needs, as well as his needs, and he put it to good use. And he's He went deep. The thing is, when I, in the little introduction there, when I talk about commercial diver astronaut training, the crew worked outside of these habitats on fake well equipment, like oil well equipment. They worked on, they built fake things underwater to be physically active, to get tests on themselves as well as what a person's capable of in saturation, experience. And so that was for the investors as much as anything. And so when I say in that little introduction that those studies were being done, they were doing that. They were going out building fake things, just for the sole purpose to see what could be done. That's it. That's all. These things, as far as I know, were never put to any kind of use. They were just, and now your everyday commercial diver wouldn't think anything about it. Right. They just go do it. That's where this came from.
Yeah.
So originally, I didn't have a lot of information on Conshelf 3. It's hard to dig up information on it. But originally, there were 5 Conshelf projects planned. That was, each was going to build on the other. So I'd love to know. I'd love to see what that plan for 4 and 5 was. What
I was going to mention that
pushing things.
There is artwork out there that shows. I don't know if it's canonical or not, but it's a depiction, and it shows like farms and dolphins, and it's basically looked like it was Conshelf. I don't remember. Well, I'll find the picture and we'll throw it up here, but it shows a bunch of stuff going on. There's like a tower going up to the surface, and there's all these different types of stuff, but it's all based around the Conshelf program. So I think it may have been maybe artist depiction of what 4 or 5 would have looked like, but I'm sure he was going to be pushing the envelopes to going deeper as well. But maybe not. Maybe he's going to go back and see what more they could do at one atmosphere and how much bigger they could go too. So yeah, I agree. What was the plans for 4 and 5?
Yeah, that's so we talk about Jacques Cousteau, especially if you watch Being Cousteau, you'll see where his mindset started to change. And because he saw the potential of the things, these backers, there's no other way to say it, the potential. So you look at how a lot of mining was done then. No one cared about what they were doing because, well, it's the earth. How are you going to hurt it? Kind of thing. Now we understand the damage that can be done. And so he started to see that then. And so he changed his mindset to conservation. And he ended the Conshelf projects. He wouldn't do them anymore. And as much as we can all admire him for that, at the same time, if he had kept his conservation mindset, what could he have done by pushing the Conshelf projects? And especially if he could have got the investors to see that same logic, what could the world be today? It's a what if. Yeah. So there's nothing to be done about it, but just imagine it.
And I think that comes back to who his backers were. They were big oil and gas who had the money to throw at this stuff. No other investors out there are going to want to throw the money at this shortest space. NASA or some a government or the European, which didn't really exist at that point in time as far as their space agency and stuff like that. So who else was there? So if he wasn't willing to get in bed with big oil and big gas, who he was at that point in time, mindset was against, where was that money going to come from? So it was, and who knows how much of it was, if I can't do it right, I'm not going to do it at all type of thing too. So maybe he did want to continue on with some type of stuff, but the backing wasn't there. So there's one of those things where it's not worth doing.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah,
So
and like you said, there's not a lot to talk about here on 3. I think the biggest thing to talk about here with 3 is it once again, it pushed the envelope. It was the next step in the iterations of Conshelf, this gradual scale of going down deeper and pushing the envelope there. And then, like I said in the last episode, it's open-ended because 4 and 5, who knows what would come from them. So really it's unfinished. 1, 2, and 3 were he was just hitting his mark. He was learning everything. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to build them. He knew how to produce them. I think 4 and 5 would have been the pinnacle of underwater habitat design, honestly, too. I think we've been seeing some amazing things come out of there. And we'll never know. I mean, maybe some of the living custos may have some idea, conversations with, that may have transpired. Who knows if it ever went that far, too. So.
My other thing, either I overlooked it or I just couldn't find the dimensions of the sphere.
Mm.
The size of it, the pictures, it wasn't really cramped as far as, the dimensions of it, the living space in it. But I had a hard time finding, and it's either that or I looked right at it and didn't see it, the actual dimensions of what the living space was inside. It's 2-story, which, understandable. And a sphere, if most people probably watching this do know, but a sphere makes it easier to withstand the pressure. That's why the first, I'll call it a vehicle, the first manned visit to the Mariana Trench was in a bathysphere, a big round steel dome or steel ball, I guess would be better said.
Yeah. Yep. It's, once again, it's much easier to build to pressure using that. Not saying it can't be done with other structures, but because you waste a lot of space with those rounded edges and stuff too, you got to build around those. So that becomes a concern. But if you build big enough, the inside space isn't a big concern. And once again, going back to 2 stories, that's a lot of space in there too. Every time I look at the thing, for some reason, I was thinking the movie Sphere and the underwater and stuff along those lines too. For some reason, I don't know if it's a sphere, it's a word thing or not, but yeah. But yeah, if anybody else has the information out there, especially, we've got some people who've been in the industry for quite a while that's part of our community and watch these videos and stuff. I'd love to get information they've got. I'm sure you would too, babe, especially on any of these habitats we talk about, especially these harder to find ones. If you guys got information, send it our way because we'd love to report on it and maybe come back and make a part 2 on some of this stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's nice that, you look on YouTube and every once in a while someone comes up with what we're doing today. But it's several years apart. You look, and I think the last one I saw was like 7 or 8 years ago, was the most recent.
Yep.
And we're just keeping it updated on the same old thing in its own way.
Pretty much.
But at the same time, it's exciting when this is what you like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else you want to throw in there about 3 or the whole Conshelf program, I guess?
Oh, I just wish it existed so I could visit it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, dear, I've got to sell one of my children so I can go visit, but you know what? It's okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Pick your favorite.
Maybe one day in VR.
Yeah. Boy, but that's with the metaverse, it's very possible.
Very possible. All right, babe. Well, we'll wrap up this last installment of Conshelf, and we'll be back with another underwater habitat. Do you know which one you're going to be doing next?
I don't. I've looked at, I think probably Sea Lab. That's okay. I keep getting pushed towards Sea Lab, so it's like, I think probably Sea Lab. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll look forward to those. Guys, as always, thank you. Thank you, babe. Hope you enjoy these things, and we will see you guys later.
Thank you.